If you followed my channel, you know that I love running 4 verticals. I did a couple of videos throughout the later end of Madden 21, but things have changed a little with Madden 22. Some of the routes work differently against different coverages, and 2x2 verticals has proven to be difficult to pick up looping edge heat this year. So I've started running something I call 4.5 verticals out of Gun Empty Trey that allows you to attack still, every coverage, but while also picking up really every blitz that'll come at you, and then you can again attack all these different defenses with really some simple reads and minimal simple adjustments as well. And I want to share that with all of you. This will be a specially long video as the play breakdown is directly from the New York Giants ebook that I just dropped on the Deuce Close Plus YouTube membership. It features tight ball control passing, unguardable shot plays, some glitchy RPOs of course, and some really wild hidden quarterback runs that are really tough to stop. I've taken a slightly different approach to my ebook this year by releasing just 2 formations at the start. These 2 formations, they're especially great on their own, and you can excel, just without even running any of the other plays in the book. Even this 4.5 vertical plays that I'm going to show you here can win you games on its own. But with that being said, there's still a lot interesting in the Giants playbook, which is why I picked it. So I'll be updating it every 2 weeks. That gives you a chance to focus and digest the first bit of plays while getting a steady stream of new plays and ideas throughout the coming months. In addition, next week I'll be doing the same, but on the defensive side of the ball with the Baltimore Ravens ebook that, to be honest, has an overwhelming amount of good formations and good plays. And I'll be updating that on the weeks that the offense doesn't, so every week you'll be adding new plays and new concepts to improve your overall game plan. Rather than just dropping a big book on you while giving some scattered tips here and there, I think this is a more directed approach that will be better for all of us, really, me and you all. So definitely consider subscribing to the YouTube membership if you haven't already. There should be a join button underneath this video, or you can go directly to my channel page and find it. Just note that if you're on iOS, it won't really show up for you, so you'll have to go on a web browser or something like that. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get into 4.5 verticals out of Gun Empty Trey in the New York Giants ebook. Okay, before we get into anything, just a few quick things at the start that we should know. Number 1, players and abilities. The only thing that you really should get is a quarterback that has gunslinger or set beat lead. You can get away with it. It makes it so much easier to have. I think it's definitely worth it. And then, as you'll see in the next play, and maybe a couple other ones down the road, escape artist is also really good. Now, if you're playing Ultimate Team, that's hard to do. If you're playing regs, just go ahead, pick Bills. Josh Allen here has both of those and you'll be totally good. If you're playing CFN, I don't know, I don't play it. Maybe there's a way you can get both. An Ultimate Team for now, you can't. But what I actually do is I have 2 quarterbacks. I have one main quarterback for throwing, and then I have Vince Young as a backup to sub in for some really cool quarterback run scheme stuff that we'll get into the next play. And then, like I said, maybe down the road as well. But in terms of everybody else, it really doesn't matter. You can kind of look around, what kind of things you prefer from your skill players in your line. That's totally up to you. Then, this formation, why I like it so much. So if you've been following me lately, I really like 2x2 spread because you have, I just think you have a lot of options. I don't like trips so much because although having 3 receivers to one side is good, it's tough to really do much with the solo side receiver. So I like to have 2x2. And in the past, that was 2x2 with a back in the backfield, whether that's a single back or a pistol or a shotgun type look, which, run and gun has all of those. They're really nice. But like I said, with the looping pressures that you see from the edge these days, just blocking a running back really isn't enough. So instead, I think that the best thing in this case is to, rather than have a back in the backfield, you have a tight end attached to the offensive line right here. He does a much better job. So we'll get into protection a little bit later when we're going up against things like cover 0 and things like that. But this is an awesome option to have that 6 blockers right across the board, and that way they'll never be able to get that looping pressure in on you. Plus, you have the delay fade cheese that you can always play around with. But that's pretty much that. The other really nice thing I like about this set is that your slot receiver to the strength is actually your running back. Which, there's packages that you can take them out, so you can have receivers and things like that if you don't want your running back. But what I find is that he does, like I have Raheem Mostert, however you pronounce it, in Ultimate Team, like, just a low-rated core elite type of card. He has some nice speed, but I find that it doesn't really matter because if you're throwing to him, he's going to be open, like likely down the seam or something like that. But even in man coverage, like the out routes and things like that, they just get open anyway. So I wouldn't be too concerned about having a running back there. But, if you have the means, you could go get like a Reggie Bush or something like that and be really, really powerful. But why I really like it is when you come across things like, and maybe this isn't the best way to show it. Maybe I can show it here. Maybe I can show it here. No, you can't show it there. Let's just show it with, say, cover 0. So cover 0 right here, and we'll get into this more lately, but you see all of these issues right here. Like this running back is going to be, he can't get pressed. He's going to be completely free. This tight end is getting guarded by a safety across the field. There's nothing you can really do there. And then the other thing is, and I probably should have showed it here, but the 3-3-5 wide, Mike 3 blitz type of thing. It looks something like this too, where you have 6 guys in the box, you have the overhang on top of your number 3 receiver, you have your corners, and then you have 2 high safeties. One of them is a deep middle third. I just pretend this is a deep middle third in the cover 3, and this guy's a flat defender. So you can just imagine all the space that this running back's going to have up the seam for big plays and some easy touchdowns as well. But for now, let me just go ahead and reset this because I've been moving around. We'll just go up against 2-4-5, which is a little bit more formationally sound against this look. Okay, I've went over these 4 verticals types of videos towards the end of last year, and things aren't too much different. What I tend to like to do, I will change things up a little bit depending on the pre-snap look that I get. But some things that I like to do, and for now, just pretend this tight end doesn't even exist. I'm just going to leave him on his default route for the now. I'll talk about what we can do with him later, but just don't even think about him from now. For these off corners, where I know I'm not going to beat them over the top, I'll usually just go ahead and put them on comebacks. Now here, again, we just have some play art glitches. It shows that they're on fades, but in reality, okay, there we go. They're on actual comeback routes. Good. And then this guy I'll always have on a seam if I'm running 4 verticals. And then this guy to the boundary, I'll either keep him on a seam, or in some cases, I'll even just put him on a curl. Again, we're getting kind of glitched out. There we go. A curl. So it's kind of up to you. It's kind of the same thing. We're attacking that seam area. Sometimes the curl is just nice against if we get man coverage or cover 4 type of look. It's nice for him to just sit in there. But that's something that you'll develop over time and something that I'll discuss in a few of these different coverages. Against stock cover 3, it's a little bit hard to throw these seam routes because the seam defenders actually do a good job of obstructing them. If we stick with it, like there are ways that we can fit it in there with Gunslinger, but sometimes maybe it's a little bit too tight. You don't really want to mess around. So to keep things simple, what I do is if I see those seam defenders playing the seams, then I'll simply just look at the comeback route. So right here, I look at the comeback route, go ahead and throw that, toe tap that, and you got a big play. Now, there's a few things that you really have to know about these comeback routes. They're a little bit harder to throw this year, I think. Particular to the boundary. Like I used to really like throwing it to the boundary, but if you throw it too late, what you see is this type of thing. So look to the left right here. Okay, here it was okay. But if I keep doing it, there are some cases where you see just like that. He just throws it too far to the outside. And that's not even an inaccurate pass. It's just kind of a miscommunication between the throwing physics and then, the catching physics, I guess. And you can't even really click onto the receiver there and do anything about that. So it's kind of unfortunate there. And then towards the beginning of this year, I was throwing a lot of those incompletions because I was still throwing it with Madden 21 timing, essentially. But if you throw it really early, then you should be good. Like if I throw it here, you can see I can just get that there and the cornerback's nowhere near. So when I talk about this play and I talk about mastering it, most of it is just trying to get the timing down on the comebacks. And the other important thing about this is that if you throw it too late, with like the timing that you would normally throw a comeback, I guess, that corner can sometimes come back and make a play on it. And if he has acrobat, he'll pick that off. So when I say, you have to kind of master this play so that you can throw it really against anything, it's a lot of it is just getting the timing on these comeback routes. You want to throw it early, so those corners with acrobat, things like that, can't really make a play on the ball. You want to throw it early so that you don't get that weird glitchiness to the boundary. And also, if there's pressure in your face, it's nice to be able to throw that ball early. Like you would normally consider comeback something you have to wait in the pocket to hit. But, if you're throwing it early, that's really not a lot of time. No pressure can really get there in time. Now to the field, it's a longer throw, but you don't ever have that weird stopping. He'll always come back to the ball. So, you can play around with it a little bit. Like right here, I could throw it a little bit later and be safe. But to the boundary, it really, really needs to be quick. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And then we'll of course show the comebacks against different coverages as well. Now, those comebacks are obviously, if you're throwing them right, and if you have that timing down, it's absolutely impossible to stop just by stock cover 3 right here. So what you'll see a lot of times, zone drops and shading to get those flat defenders to shoot out to the sideline. But as soon as they do that, and I'll show you both ways right here, then we have the seam right here completely wide open. And if we have some speed, we can rack catch that for an even bigger chunk of yards. Likewise, so I showed you to the field right here. I'll also show you to the boundary. And if you want, you can convert those so they don't head towards the free safety. You can convert them to fade or just a simple streak to give you a little bit more space if you want. So, to the boundary, it seems like there'd be less space, but I think it's actually a more consistent throw. And what's nice about this empty look is that if I'm doing this at a 2x2 spread with the back in the backfield, and you do have the shading where that slot defender immediately shoots out to cover the comeback route, this strong hook defender does actually a pretty good job of coming out there and making it so you have to really wait to throw the field seam. But because you have the tight end right here essentially occupying that hook, then you can throw this much, much earlier right here. You see like that hook is really in no man's land, and we can just throw it right to the outside and over him for that big chunk of yards. Now we can take a quick aside right here and actually go to Mike Blitz 3. So I'll keep it here matching, partly because there's no zone drop adjustments in practice mode, so I can't show you all the crazy, quote unquote Mabel stuff people do. But, and I'll just go ahead and mid-read this guy. But I just want to show you some things here just so I can make it evident to you right here. So right here, they're playing match coverage, cover 3 match, so no adjustments. But, cover 3 match does not match trip sets. So right here, this seam guy, this slot receiver right here, the back, will always be completely free up the middle. You just got to wait for him to clear a bit. And then now, that free safety is way out of position and you got your touchdown. Now, smart players, they might come shoot out there with their user, or, maybe they don't trust that and they'll go ahead and man this guy up. So, you'll want to be careful here, of course. But once that's not there, that just means that nobody's going to be here to cover the comeback route and you're just as fine. So that's pretty much that. Now, the other thing before we get to the tight end at the end here, the other thing that I mentioned is that sometimes I like to put the boundary slot receiver on a curl route here. The reason, again, that I like to do that is that if it turns out to be man coverage, it's nice to have that other option, not just the comeback routes. Or if it's, say, like a cover 4 drop where the seams will be covered by the safeties, it's nice to have that option as well. Just be careful, if the user's to the boundary right here, usually he's on the strong hook, but if he's over here, he can, of course, get in the way with that. And let me just take the tight end out of position right here. But what I like about this is, again, if they're shading, this curl is going to get into a really nice spot right here that can't be covered by the flat or the hook. The same can't really be said about the field slot right here because he's inside the number, so the strong hook can actually get to him. If he's not preoccupied by the tight end right here, he can get there. He's preoccupied a bit, so he comes late. But if they're doing things like this, where they have, so they're doing shading, and then maybe they're putting a low flat as well, and so they only have one hook in the middle of the field, and that's their user. then, you know, you can start to kind of just put both out there and just pick your poison essentially. But for stock defenses, I don't generally put that out there. Now, here's where the tight end gets involved. Obviously, if they're trying the double loop blitzing, mugging type of stuff, you know, you can just go ahead and put him on the delay fade so he'll block. And then, you know, if you need him as a last effort, you can just release him and throw him to that. You guys know all about that stuff. I don't really want to talk about too much about it. But there's all sorts of different things you can do. So right here, even just a flat route is good. So right here, the slot defender gets preoccupied. We just shoot this out there and we get 15 easy yards just from a tight end flat route. Same thing underneath right here. And the beauty about this is that generally the defenses that you need to defend this type of stuff with the comebacks, it is either really good man coverage or like say cover 4, drop 8 types of things. But if you cover these, if you somehow cover all 4 of these, there's just no way that you can also cover the tight end underneath. So you see, you know, you have the flat or you have the drag, which should each give you easy 10 yards. And this can just be a completely situational thing. You don't need to do the same thing every time. You can just change it up, right? You know, keep the user guessing essentially. So just play around with that as you see fit. You can also just curl him right underneath right here. So again, you know, if they're shooting their flats out to guard the comebacks right here, there's no way they can cover both of these guys with that one hook defender. So in that case, that was with double hooks right here. I'll leave the seamer right here. I'll leave the tight end on a curl here. Of course, if the user's there, you know, he'll take that all day long. But if he's not, you can go ahead and take that all day long. Okay, so that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about cover 3. Cover 2 right here. So when you tend to see something with more pressed corners, I'll usually just leave the boundary comeback. I'll leave this seam right here. Again, this one I'll either seam or curl off. But I'll tend to leave this guy in a fade right here. Number one, if it's press man with nobody over the top and I have a decent matchup over there, I'll peek at that to see if I can win over the top. Or if it turns out to be cover 2, that's really nice to have because you'll get this outside release. You wait a little bit, you go ahead and throw that right here, and you got yourself an easy 1-play score. And even if they have, like if they're doing this type of thing that you see lately where they have these halves and this guy's in a 30-yard cloud flat, you can still throw this if you have set feet lead or gunslinger. You just have to wait for your fade to finally clear that 30-yard cloud flat. Then you can throw that outside because the safety will be drawn inside by this route right here, and you can actually get that over the top. So don't be fooled by some of these guys that really like to drop their clouds deep. You can still fit it over there. And if they're doing hard flats, that's, you know, just a easy, much easier right there. You don't even have to wait. You just go ahead and throw that with outside pass lead, another 1-play score. Okay, another thing, again, you know, the tight end plays a nice role right here. So say if I'm putting him on a hook right here, that's going to draw the middle read defender. And you see you can also throw it right in the middle between these two safeties, and you got another 1-play score. Or if they are playing a little bit more sound right here, where they have the middle read and an actual deep third right here, then you'll have nobody underneath to guard this tight end right here, of course, unless the user is, but then they're just giving up something else. Or again, you know, you have the drag from the tight end. That's going to get open against this dropping cover 2. Likewise, you also have the tight end flat right here. It won't be as good, but you can get 5 easy yards, if not more. Having the tight end flat is also nice if they're running something like cover 2 sink, where they have soft squats out there. So if he's running something like this, that soft squat will carry the fade and you won't be able to throw that over the top. But if you have him coming out to the flat, then the corner will try to trap him, and then you can go ahead and just throw this here, and again, you got your 1-play score. Nice. One thing I should say is that the comeback and the curl are a little bit tougher now. Let me just put tight end away right here. If you wait a little bit, that curl can open up. So wait. Throw that low ball, and you can get that in there. The comeback you can throw to the boundary or to the field. Just note that, you know, it's something that requires even more practice, and then you just don't see enough cover 2 to really get those reps in. But if they're running stock cover 2 right here, what happens is that cloud flat actually lets the comeback go. So right here, let's look to the field right here. He lets him go to the outside, and if you throw that with a little bit of anticipation, you can actually get that above him. Or again, you know, if you have this type of thing where they're dropping these guys deep, so I'm just going to put an outside third there to mimic that, like a 30-yard guy, then, you know, you won't be able to hit it over the top, but it'll work just like a deep third, and you can throw that comeback underneath. But again, that requires a little bit of experience to get down. You just have to be careful a little bit with soft squats. The timing on these comebacks is a little bit different. So you see, it converts to man, but he kind of cheats underneath. We can still kind of squeeze it in there. It just, again, requires a bit of a timing difference. So cover 2 is a little bit differently, I think mainly because, you have these vert hooks that cover these seam guys, and these cloud flats can get in the mix a little bit to screw you up. But for not many people really run cover 2. And then if they are, again, I showed you at the beginning with, the outside fade and even the seamer right here, not to mention the tight end check right down right here. It's just really, really easy to score one-play touchdowns against this coverage. So I think you should be normally good to go. But, without, I showed you a few different setups and things like that, but really for the most part, it's, come back to the boundary, curl or seam in the boundary slot. I like curl in a lot of cases for more ball control. Whatever you want at the tight end, leave this guy in a seamer, and then this guy, I'll really only put him on a comeback if I know it's like cover 3 or man coverage. If it could be anything and that corner's pressed up, then I'll leave that fade there in the chance of him beating the guy man to man over the top, or if it's like a hard cloud corner and I can just throw it out there for that one play score. So that is cover 2. So cover 4, I'm just going to be talking about match quarters right here. And then I'll also use it to kind of talk about drop coverage right as well. But, things aren't too different. It's really the same thing. Right here, the corner's off. So I'm going to go ahead and convert this guy to a comeback. If he was playing pressed, I'd probably try to fade him and see if I can win over the top. But right here, you're going to have a one-on-one with the corner, throw it early right here, and then you don't get the animation, but he should catch that. And just for the sake of completion right here, we'll go ahead and do that again. We'll see that the slot defender doesn't shoot out, so we throw that early, and we got our easy 15 yards. Likewise to the boundary right here, you'll see that the curl doesn't really get open. Like this seam, if you run a seam, he's going to be going right at that quarter safety right there, whether it's cover 4 drop or quarters. The curl is nice, but against stock cover 4 quarters, that quarter flat does actually a pretty good job. But then all that means is that you're going to have one-on-one on the backside right here. You throw that early, and you're going to get your easy completion. But again, just like cover 3, if they are doing any sort of shading to bring those slot defenders out to deal with those comeback routes, all that means is that you have all this space right underneath to work with your curl routes. Really, really nice. Of course, you also have, your tight end flat, your tight end curl, your tight end drag, which are especially good in this because quarter flats really tend to get out leveraged to the flat in this coverage. So right here, actually does a little bit better job than cover 3, but still easy 7 yards. Likewise with the drag, again, so let's go ahead and set this all up. You got your comebacks, the curl. The quarter flat does not do a good job of covering this drag route. We just go right around him right here. In this case, we got 20 yards. But what really takes the cake here is if you know it's quarters, not palms, if you know it's quarters, like, people with 3-3-5 wide, cover 4 show 2, people will run that, and they will actually run match sometimes. They'll be using the middle linebacker, or even if they just let them go, what you're going to do is convert your tight end to a streak route. And then what I'll do is, again, you're going to be comebacking over here, and you can leave him just the way he is, just to give you a little bit more space. You can just go ahead and curl him. And what you'll see is that this 3-rec does not cover his man, and the tight end is completely free for a one-play score. Just keep in mind that against, cover 4 palms or cover 6, this will actually be special, meaning that you'll have the corner will take the receiver, the slot guy will take, your slot receiver, and then the safety will take the tight end up the field. In this case, the 3-rec has to because it's so low, but he's not actually programmed correctly. Plus, anybody that is going to be usering him, I doubt they're going to be covering him all the way up the field. So, usually this is going to be a nice one-play score. Again, presuming you know that it's cover 4 quarters. Okay, and let's round it off with a little bit of man coverage. If you've played spread in this game, yeah, you know that most people try to test you with some sort of press man coverage to see if you have man beaters, because usually, when you're running against bunch and compression and things like that, you have crossers going every which way that are just going to destroy man coverage. But with spread, it's, you don't really have those. So, if you're not really good with it, a hard press man could really mess with you. Of course, we have this tight end right here that can do a lot of damage. We'll get to him shortly. But the same routes that we have out here are just as good. So this curl, even though he gets pressed, if we throw it before the break and we have a good quarterback, go ahead, toe tap that or possession catch that, we'll get that almost every single time. And what I like about that curl route is that oftentimes there's just a weird reaction from that DB, as you just saw there. Particularly if the user clicks on, sometimes they'll miss, and then you'll just run for an extra 5, 10, 15 yards or more. If it's cover zero, it'll be a touchdown, So I really, really like that one. If they don't press, like if it's a soft press, that's just even easier right here. So you don't have to mess around with anything. Just throw it before the break right here, and you have even more space to make a nice cushy catch. The comeback routes were really, really easy for me last year. They're a little bit trickier this year against these hard press corners, particularly if they have acrobat. But just know that if you throw it, well, right here, you just had a win, and I can just throw that right there. But if you don't get that super win, again, you just need to throw it with good timing right here. The cornerback doesn't really react right there, and you can just go ahead and catch that anyway. What's actually even better than these curls, and though I wouldn't recommend this if you don't know what coverages is, like if you want to go through your regular progressions that I've been showing, just don't bother with it, just leave this. But if you know it's press man, what I really like are these 10-yard out routes from the slot. And again, the play art, okay, there it is. These guys, like no matter what, they just win. Right here, they just win every single time. Even if it doesn't look like they're going to win, they always win. So against press man coverage, that's always going to be a nice option for you. I showed you to the field right there. I'll also show you to the boundary. Right here, I actually have a good receiver right here. You just see how he gets open every single time. That's something you can rely on if you know it's press man. Then, if that wasn't enough, the tight end is just going to get open everywhere. So right here, let's just keep him on a little curl right in the middle right here. Gets no jam. It's easy for him to get that 10, 12 yards. Likewise, and even if the user's on him, like even if he thinks he's going to user him man-to-man, if you throw him on a quick flat, there's just nothing he'll ever be able to do. Look at this. Just look at all the spacing he gets because of that leverage. So that curl is nice. That little flat is nice. You can also do a little out route right here if you want, right there. Sometimes he gets even more space, allows those corners to drift a little bit more so they can't come off. And then if that wasn't enough, you also, of course, have the drag. So this is really nice against man because you have a three-way go essentially. So your opponent can't be like, okay, I'm using that curl and that flat because they've been giving me issues. But then you also have the drag, which of course, you get a free release and it's hard to cover by the AI. Okay, so that's 2-man. Most of the stuff will relate to cover 1, of course. Cover 0 is a little bit different because you have the pressure. So let's go ahead and cover 0, press right here. Sometimes people play cover 0 and drop like 30-yard flats also, like at a 3-3-5 wide. But generally, I'm not looking to hit big crossers and corner routes anyway, so we don't really need to care about that. It just gives us more time in the pocket. But if they are sending a lot of guys, again, having that tight end right there is really, really nice. Or, you can put them on a delay fade right here. The delay fade is actually better because it means that the guy that's manned up on him can't go do something else. So watch it right here. So if he's on a delay fade, then that safety will essentially come down as a spy, and then there'll be no safety over the top. So we get our 1-play score. However, same thing right here. If I do a regular blocking assignment, I don't do the check release, watch the safety now. Rather than coming down on a spy, he'll play the middle of the field right here. And although I wouldn't actually throw that, he just adds another defender into the mix that we don't really want to deal with. So definitely keep that in mind. But also, in this case, even though they're sending 6 at us, don't be afraid to send all 5 guys out, particularly in this case right here. Look where the safety is. Look where my tight end is, right? So if they're trying to send 6 guys, why don't I just shoot this guy right out here and look at all this space I have, and I have some blockers out in front. I don't even have to wait for that pressure to come in. But again, you know, we can just block him and work with what we have. We have all these one-on-one matchups right here. Of course, these comebacks are still really, really good for us. Those are going to be good for 15, 20 yards. We also have one of these guys, unless they manually bring this safety down, he's going to get free releases all the way, right? So we can do what I've been talking about before with our 10-yard out routes. So we got a running back against the safety right here. He usually just completely cooks him. Usually only have to deal with the boundary right there, but otherwise it'd be a huge chunk of yards. If you don't want to do that, and if you want to get the ball out a little bit quicker, the zig is also good. Definitely never do a 5-yard out. Those get covered well. But instead, you know, this zig is really nice. You see all this separation right here. Get that out quickly, get your 10 yards, maybe more if you have speed. So you have the zig, you have the out, you also have this curl right here. Just throw that before the break. You got 10 yards. So that's completely up to you. And actually something I forgot, if you do come across something like this where it's cover 0 and then, you know, the safety's way over here. And by the way, you know, this is a product of leaving the running back in the slot. If the running back wasn't in the slot and if he was over here instead, in the left slot on the weak side right here, then the defense would be much more sound. But because we're leaving him here, now you have this sort of crazy thing. And what you can even do is just go ahead and, again, you know, we don't need to block everybody. As long as we can get that ball out quick, we have all this space to work with. We don't even need to worry about the pressure. Okay, last thing about cover 0 before we finally finish up this 1 hour part on just 4 verticals here is you also have this nice little motion right here from the weak side slot receiver. So you can motion him in and he comes in line, meaning that you can go full on 7-man pass protection. Again, you have these play art issues there. You can go full on pass protection. If you're really somehow having issues, if they're going like field goal block against you, if you just want to have the time, you always have that option. But what I like about it is that it gives you the option to free release 2 guys. So if it's cover 2-man, you don't need to worry about pressure. You got 2 guys that can be free released. So, you know, you can do this type of thing where you have, you know, 2 shallow crossers. So you have the little mesh concept right here. Those guys will both get open against man. Or if you like this tight end option right here, I hate this play art so much. It's such a disaster. Anyway, okay. If you like the tight end, you can bring this guy into block. And then you can just go ahead. You know that you have the protection right there, and you know that you have the tight end. So you can just mix it up a little bit of who blocks and who comes out. And not to mention, you know, you can do fun stuff with doing regular slot adjustments like a slant right here. And then you can bring him in over here, knowing that he can't get pressed. So this slant route here can get open as well. So that's pretty much it for 4 verticals right here, or goes, Y shake, whatever they want to call it here. Again, you know, just to recap, really try to leave this back in here. I know it might seem weird having that guy be a back and not a receiver. I think it's definitely better to have him there and do all the weird things that it does to the defensive alignment. You know, your base call is going to be pretty much this type of thing where you have the boundary come back, you have the curl or the seam to the boundary slot, you have the seam in the field slot. Here, if the corner's backed off, you come back. If he's pressed, you can fade, but there's still a little bit of discretion there for you. And then, of course, you can do whatever you want with the tight end, whether that's block him, put him on the little flat route here, a little curl right here, a drag. You just have so many options with him underneath that, you know, generally he gets completely wide open if they're trying to defend 4 verticals. And then as soon as they try to come down on that tight end, all that does is just open up things for these other 4 guys. And then from there, you know, in particular when it comes down to them bringing man coverage at you, of course, you know, the basic stuff, you know, the curl right here, the comebacks, those will still be open for you, but you do still have the freelancing opportunities that I showed you, whether that's doing whatever you want from your tight end, things like deep outs from your slot receiver, bringing this guy in for extra protection. You know, things can change and you can give your opponent different looks, but you still have these kind of core principles of heading directly up the field, and then if you break, it's just going to be one break, whether that's comeback or a curl. You don't need to wait for receivers to cross all the way across the field and things like that. Okay, so that is the bread and butter for verticals play.